going on with this Arkansas Razorback football team? Let's talk about that today in episode 44 of the Woo Pig Weekly podcast here from the home field studio, your weekly source for all things Arkansas Razorbacks. Episode 44 is brought to you by Home Field, home of premium vintage college apparel. So go check it out today, and you can use promo code Variety Sports in all caps to receive 15% off that first order. Go check them out. They've got a lot of great hog stuff, ranging from basketball, football, baseball. They got a fantastic baseball quarter zip that has the classic Old English A red, fantastic. Would love to get that at some point in the future. So go check them out today. Fantastic stuff. And again, that's Variety Sports in all caps, thanks to Variety Sports Network. So go check them out today and get that 15% off your first order. And so we'll dive in here. And I always hate weeks like this where we have to talk about a loss. As much as we want to be high on the Hogs as we can, this is the reality of being a Hogs fan. You're going to lose some, like this one in this case, that you're favored by 8-9 in this game, and you drop it. And so Arkansas fell to BYU this past weekend, 38-31. And what was a really interesting game, Arkansas started out hot in this game, scoring 2 quick touchdowns right off the bat. And, you really think, okay, we're rolling. We're going to cruise through this one. But that definitely wasn't the case here for the Hogs. It was a struggle up and down, with different pieces of the game, offensive line, finding running room, receivers, not necessarily being able to get some separation, dropping some balls, things of that nature. And so with that, we'll jump into the stats here. And if you look at it, KJ Jefferson finished 24 of 35 in this game for a 68.5% completion percentage for 247 yards, 1 touchdown, and his first interception of the season. He also had 13 carries for 21 yards, averaging 1.6 yards per carry, so not fantastic either. He also had a couple fumbles in this game, so, not your typical KJ and what you're used to seeing out of him. Is there anything out of this game, specific with KJ that really stood out to you?
Realistically, man, I actually thought KJ played pretty well, considering the pressure he was under, play in and play out. I think that was the highlight of the game to me. He was having about a second and a half back there before he had somebody in his grill or was getting flushed out of the pocket, which that makes any quarterback's life hard. That was kind of the first thing that stood out to me, was just the offensive line didn't give him the protection he needed. And realistically, they didn't give him the protection that they had the first 2 games. I think you started to see a team that had a little bit more talent on that defensive line, and some of their linebackers were a little bit quicker. And then we still just don't look like we've gelled as a unit on the offensive line, whether it's in run blocking or pass protection. And I think that was the main glaring problem in this game, and it kind of cascaded down and created problems in other facets. Obviously, KJ kind of having to rush through his first pick. Wasn't really a horrible throw. I think he just kind of short-armed it a little bit. I think he needed a little bit more arch on it and might have got it over the linebacker that was able to jump up. So the receiver that was behind the linebacker, another 10 yards back there, was actually open. So he read the play well. He just the throw was just a little bit off target. But other than that, I thought KJ played pretty well considering the duress he was under the majority of the game.
Yeah, I think if I remember exactly on that pick that he threw, I think he's actually in the process of getting hit. So he kind of, as he was getting hit, had to release the ball earlier than he wanted to, which probably resulted in, like you said, him short-arming that throw and getting the pick. But, I've got some interesting things we'll talk about here in a little bit after we get it through some of these stats. We jump over to rushing. Our rushing stats for the day, Rocket Sanders, again, didn't play this game, as we're trying to get him back from injury. So you had A.J. Green get the most carries in this game. Or actually, he was second in carries, but had more yards in this game with 9 carries for 86 yards, where he also had 2 touchdowns, averaged 9.6 yards per carry. But that is a little different to look at, just because you got to consider he had 1 carry for 55 yards, and then the other 8 were for 31 yards, which actually is 3.8 yards per carry, which is not as good as what you would like to see out of a guy that should be stepping up and being, a number one while Rocket's out. He had also 1 reception for 7 yards. Rashad Dominion actually led this team in carries this game with 13, but only managed to get 47 yards out of those carries, averaging 3.6 yards per carry. He also had 1 reception for 7 yards. And then Dominic Johnson, 2 carries for 17 yards, 7 yards per carry. He had 1 reception for -2 yards. he had a great carry where he cut back and reverse field that looked really good. But, I think the overall arching thing when you look at these stats, besides that one play AJ Green had at the beginning of the game where we really just caught them off guard, was we're still not getting the blocking that we need to have a dominant rushing attack like we did last year. And I think that's, like you said, a glaring thing that really, as a Sam Pittman team, as a team that has running back depth, we shouldn't be struggling. And I think that shows you that there's something going on that just isn't right for this team to have success in the running game right now.
Yeah, if you go and watch some of the highlights of this game, the breakout run that AJ did have for 55 yards, the one thing you notice is you see some linemen up in the secondary picking up blocks on linebackers, blocking a safety, for him to be able to kind of get the outside edge and run down the sideline at 55 yards for the touchdown. So that's what you kind of expect out of the offensive line, be able to, get off their block once they form a hole, especially if you're, pulling your center around to the right-hand side or something like that, kind of how that play went. That play was executed really well. You go and watch that, and that's kind of one of those highlights. It's like, okay, guys, this is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. When you don't do this, the running backs don't have anywhere to go, so that's why you're seeing these averages around 3 yards a carry, sometimes even a little bit less, just kind of depends. Obviously, AJ had a great game. On his 9 carries, he was obviously productive. The 2 touchdowns, the one breakout run where the line really did block well, tight ends blocked well, everybody blocked well that play, and it made a difference. But I like at the end of the day, that's just kind of what you got to go back to every time. You see these runs that you just get snuffed out where they maybe get one if they're lucky, or you'll see a running back make a great play just to pick up the one run because they got hit in the backfield and they shed 2 tackles just to get back to the line of scrimmage or maybe gain a yard or 2. And it's like, man, they just had a tremendous play to only gain 1 yard. So it makes their stats not really what they should be, because some of those guys really were playing their butt off.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where everybody is really like looking at it like when you've got a coach in Sam Pittman that he's known to be a great offensive line coach and we're having those struggles, like it just doesn't make sense in a term of, what's going on. And we'll dive into that here in a little bit, but we jump over to our receiving stats. Not a terrible game receiving and being able to throw the ball. So you have Andrew Armstrong leading in targets with 9 receptions for 98 yards. So almost hit that century mark there. You had Luke Haas, which I really think this was a good breakout game for him. He looked really good in this game with 4 receptions for 78 yards, and he got his first collegiate touchdown in this game. And what was a great route and catch in the end zone for, I believe it was like a 19-yard touchdown pass from KJ. Looked really good in this. I think he's starting to pick up the college game more and being able to contribute more. You have Isaac Tesla, 4 receptions for 26 yards. He did not definitely did not get the ball in his hands enough this game. And then you had Jaden Wilson for 2 receptions for 16 yards. So, you have some goods and bads with this receiving core. You see guys like Luke Haas starting to step up. A lot of receptions going to Armstrong, clearly KJ's favorite target so far this season. And then Isaac Tesla with 4 receptions, which, he's a dynamic playmaker. I think you've got to get the ball in his hands and, let him do what he does best, making plays, getting those first downs. So, when you look at our passing / receiving attack, what do you think there?
Well, I think this was a game where you could tell KJ was trying to just get the ball to his most reliable guy. And in his mind, I think that's Andrew Armstrong, obviously. So those plays were, you're trying to get the ball out fast and you're just trying to trust in the receiver that you're throwing to. I think Armstrong has solidified that spot as kind of his guy that he's just, even if the route's not really open, he's going to try to force it in there just because he trusts him and he ain't got time to really read the field. So I think that's why you saw an uptick in Armstrong's production this game, even more so than the previous 2 games, which he's already had a good year. But then Luke Haas, I thought really, like you said, kind of got things clicking. He had a couple good clutch first down catches where he was able to find some soft spots in the defensive zone of BYU. So he's understanding the game. I mean, he already had a great mind coming in. You could tell. But he's really kind of hitting his rhythm, being able to kind of show his numbers to the quarterback whenever KJ's having to extend the play with his legs or something like that. And that's what you want out of your tight end, and be able to recognize that. That's why you have guys in the NFL that are so good with their quarterbacks. You think of like Travis Kelce, Hawkinson, guys like that. They do a really good job kind of ad-libbing some plays when their quarterbacks are under duress. So I thought he did a great job kind of doing that same thing, especially later on in this game where he had a couple of clutch catches down the stretch. But anyhow, I thought he played really well. And then, to your point, I think Isaac Tesla had some opportunities to maybe get a little bit more involved in this. Just some of the throws weren't quite there. There were some really good sparks in this game that just never really could get the fire completely lit. I think kind of to your point earlier on, we scored so quickly on the first two. Yeah, there was a punt return. I ain't going to steal the thunder, but to get us up 14-0 real quick. And I don't know if we just got overly confident from that and just thought we were about to crush them or something and just kind of let them get back into it. But it was just a weird kind of turn of events the way this game went, and I think there was some missed opportunities where Isaac was open and KJ just couldn't get the ball to him just because he did not have the time.
Yeah, that's fair. And then when you look over at our defensive side of the ball, not that our defense played terrible. I still think they have looked tremendously improved from last season. I mean, we allowed 38 points. Not fantastic, but I think this team is still learning this new scheme as well and what Travis Williams is wanting to do defensively. But I think they're definitely improved from last season. We've seen that. That goes into, we had another forced fumble this game. Dwight McGlothern came in with a big hit, forced the fumble. It was recovered by Hudson Clark. A great turnover for this defense to continue to put pressure on the ball on these ball carriers, these receivers of other teams. And again, when you look at top players on defense for this game, that same name is at the top of the list. Once again, Jaheim Thomas, 9 total tackles, 6 solo tackles. He has been, a fantastic player for Arkansas this season. And then right behind him, who else other than Chris Paul Jr. with 7 tackles of his own, 3 solo, 1.5 tackles for loss. And then behind him, a guy that I think he's starting to put it together with, his new size and speed that he's been able to transform himself over the offseason, is you got Landon Jackson. We talked about him all offseason about how he's expected to come in and have a big year. Well, third game of the season, he's starting to really put stats on the page besides those intangibles. He had 5 total tackles, 4 solo, 1.5 sacks, and 3.5 tackles for losses. So he's really getting in the backfield and getting these guys for sacks and for losses and hitting the ball carrier in the backfield. So I think we're starting to see him really take shape into what he could be this season. And then behind him, Taron Carter, 4 total tackles, 1 solo, 0.5 tackle for loss. So, really good numbers from these defensive guys. So defensively, what are you thinking right now?
Kind of to your point, we gave up 38 points, but it felt like our defense played well. It's kind of weird, you know what I mean? There was a few big plays they hit that I thought we had good coverage on. It was just a good catch by the receivers. They had that big tight end, had a couple of big catches down the stretch to kind of put the game away for BYU on us. He played well, but overall, I really did feel like our defense was able to get more pressure on Keaton Slovis than the last 2 games. We've been able to get on quarterbacks. I thought we started strong. We forced a 3-and-out right at the beginning of the game, if I remember correctly. And I think everything is clicking on defense way better than we were last year. It just didn't translate into points not being on the board this game. I think a lot of that is because later in the game, we were going 3-and-out over and over. We went for it on 4th down once at 50-yard line. We can talk about that play later, but didn't get it. So turned the ball over on downs, and they had a short field. So we kind of our offense kind of set our defense up to fail later in this game, if that makes sense. And I'm not trying to point blame or anything like that, but I actually feel like our defense played well. It doesn't reflect in the score, but that's just my opinion on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think, not putting blame, but like you said, if you're going 3-and-out, you're not giving your defense time to rest. So they're having to come off the field. You get the ball back, go quick 3-and-out. They're right back on the field, not getting time to rest. So they're not as fresh as, if you have a long, scoring drive where they get time to rest, get rehydrated and ready to go. So
plus BYU's getting more possessions. I mean, I think that was a lot of it. They had more possessions than they should have had overall because we couldn't control the clock well enough. And that really hurt us because at one point in the second half, we were up by 10 in this game.
Yeah. And then when you jump over to our special teams, where had some good plays in this game, where, we said it these past 2 weeks, not if, but when. And, that win has came. Isaiah Satania, he had 3 kick returns for 49 yards, 3 punt returns for 95 yards and a touchdown. Where that big play, he broke an 88-yard punt return for a touchdown. We all knew it was coming at some point. And, as soon as he hit that edge, he was gone. He's got that quick speed. And so, I think you're seeing what he can do. He's only a redshirt freshman. So, he's only going to get better. One thing for me, when you look at him and the speed and what he's able to do, we haven't really seen him played at the wide receiver position hardly at all this season. So is it time you start shuffling him into that mix? I know that might be something, guys aren't getting separation. He's got some speed, throw him out there, run him on a deep route, run him a quick slant, something like that where he can use that ability, to help benefit this team.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. He's been in on some plays, not just a ton. He's definitely not a huge target for KJ. I think that's probably why you're not seeing him on the field as much as him and KJ just don't have the chemistry yet. And whatever the case may be for that, maybe they haven't taken enough reps together. I don't know. I think there's got to be something kind of along those lines because the speed's there. There's no arguing that. Maybe he's got some inconsistencies in his hands, or honestly, he may need to be working on routes. Maybe he doesn't have his cleaner routes. He's always dependent on his speed to get open in high school, and then you kind of transition that over to college ball, and he's not getting open as well because his routes aren't as crisp or something. I don't know. I don't expect him to not be in outside of that kind of wide receiver consideration for long, though. I think he's one of those guys that'll put in the work. He's already showing what kind of playmaking ability he has when the ball is in his hands. So I think to your point, you got to figure out ways to kind of get those improvements made to where you do implement him in the offense more. Get your playmakers out there. That's what it's all about. So I would expect to see him a little bit more involved kind of as the year goes on and he maybe improves in some areas.
Yeah, that's true. And that brings us to the 2 points I really want to hit on here. First one, you briefly touched on it a while ago. Fourth down play where we went for it on 4th and short. I think everybody's been asking a question. You've got a guy like KJ. He's 6'4", 245. Why are we not lining up under center and running a Philly special and, having him fall forward and get that first down? I just don't understand it. You line up in the shotgun and you're already putting yourself an additional 2 to 3 yards behind where that first down marker's at. And when you go back and look at that play, I feel like BYU really had it read the whole way. You saw, we handed off to Rashad and, he was quickly met at the line with a defender. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that situation?
Well, my thought, honestly, it was we shouldn't have ran the ball, which that sounds weird, but everybody in the building knew we were going to run the ball on that play. Whether it was going to be a QB sneak or a quarterback draw or a running back play, I think it was kind of like an ISO type play, but everybody in the building knew we were going to run the ball there. We've done it over and over and over. If you go watch game film from this year and last year, when we were in 4th and short, we ran the ball. And we got it some. We tried QB sneak some and got them some, but then didn't get them some. We weren't like Philadelphia and batting dang near 1,000 on our QB sneaks. We had some that did not go well last year. So I don't argue the call to not sneak it there. I actually think running the ball there might have been the mistake since it was so expected. It's been our MO so often when we've been going for it on those 4th and short, 3rd and short kind of type things. Everybody knows to look for that. And I really think probably could have had a little bit more success doing kind of a little bootleg play action, something like that, and then hit Luke Haas on a little flag route or somebody on a slant. Pure conjecture, and I know those are harder plays to hit than they sound like, but I think you would have caught everybody in the building off guard and had a lot more chance of success there. At the same time, our offensive line has got to generate more push. So you can think of that a couple different ways where, obviously we ought to be able to go up against a team like BYU and get a yard. You know what I mean? You whether they know the run's coming or not, you want to have that confidence in your offensive line to be able to do that.
Right. And I think that's
however, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's to the point of, I think last year that was the case. If you knew we were going to run it or not, even if you did, we were still getting it. Our line was at this point in time drastically better than it currently is and so we could line rocket up or, whether it be KJ with a draw play, even if they knew that was coming, they couldn't really stop it last year. And I think that has to do with what over the weekend I was talking with some people. It has been maybe mentioned that with the exit of Browse, the Enos coming in taking over, that this run game and this Enos type of offense has shifted from a zone running style to a gap blocking style. So I don't know if that has anything to do with how our offensive line is struggling with. They're having to learn how to, I guess, in a sense, block a little bit differently than they have in the past. That's something that was brought up that, had some discussions about over the weekend. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I could actually see that being a little bit of the struggle. However, when you're not able to get any push at all on the guy that you're going up against, we're getting beat at the line of scrimmage just off the guy that's lined up right in front of them. Even when defenses aren't running stunts or something like that, we're basically just not as strong as I think we thought we were, if that makes sense, from the entire line standpoint. I think our footwork's not as good as it should be. Some of that may be scheme related. I can definitely see that being an issue, but at some point, I think everybody's got to realize, we're not as strong as maybe we thought we were, just from an overall lower body strength standpoint, where we're not able to body guys around like we kind of have been the last couple of years. Whatever the reasons behind that, I don't know. I really thought Ben Satter's been doing a great job with strength and conditioning. You see it in some of these guys' workout videos. So I think there may be just some maybe mechanics involved also, but something's not quite meshing right between all those factors, where we're getting pushed off the line backwards instead of us generating the push and pushing guys back into the linebackers and stuff, to where you're making holes. The linebackers are able to hit the hole like the running back is, if that makes sense, because you're not actually pushing your lineman back into the linebackers. So that's been the biggest issue in my mind.
Yeah, I know. When you look at Coach Pittman's presser after the game, he'd mentioned some of these guys struggling with some hand issues as far as, possibly be like injury type things. I don't know how much that's going to affect. He said they were casted up pretty good, taped up, everything like that. I know that's probably got to have some effect, but at what point when you're blocking a guy, you still got to be able to, do your job in a sense. And, I don't know how much more shuffling around in a sense we're going to have to do to figure out the right combination on this offensive line. But I know one thing: if we want this weekend to be a close game, it's going to have to happen this week, or we're going to, it's just not going to be a good game this weekend. And we'll preview that here in a little bit. But, that's one thing that it's got to get fixed sooner than later if we want to have any type of success in conference play. I don't want to say salvage the season, because we're only 3 games in. We've lost 1 game. It's not a big deal right now. You start looking at this tough road stretch that starts this week, where we go to Death Valley, we go to Dallas and play A&M, we go on the road to Ole Miss, we go on the road to Alabama. That's not an easy stretch by any means, and we're going to have to be able to give KJ some time, or he's going to be hurt. Sam Pittman also mentioned in a press conference this week, where same thing we heard him say a lot last year. Well, KJ was banged up. At what point does that not become a valid reason to use anymore? If he's banged up, we know Jacoby Criswell is extremely talented, but him in the game, if KJ is really banged up enough to really affect his type of play.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. If it's to the point where you're missing throws, I mean, I think you got to throw Jacoby out there. He's proved that he at least can compete, and can throw the ball well. I don't know how that would translate over to a tougher game like BYU or LSU, something of that nature. I don't know, but you at least got to give the guy a chance if your number one guy isn't fully healthy to the level that it's hindering his play. Obviously, guys play banged up all the time. It's football; you're going to have that. But if it's to the level that it's hindering his ability to throw or his ability to plant or something like that, is his feet, so he's not able to get as much on the ball as he normally is until you see him short arm and throws. I mean, there's some signs there that you might need to take him out for a week or two and just let him get healthy, and then try to win the games later in the season, whatever the case may be. So I do trust Sam Pittman to make the right decisions on all these issues. I know there's a lot of talk going around on kind of questioning his decision-making ability on certain items, but I trust him so far. I don't think we're in panic mode yet at all.
Yeah, I think it's just this game caught everybody by surprise on a game that we honestly ran it all over them and had a lot of success against them last year at their home field. And so coming back to Fayetteville, it's like, oh, well, that should be another easy win for us. I still think it's like you said, Sam Pittman's got to step up, and he's the head man. Some of those things he's got to make decisions on. Maybe it's one of those things where he is an offensive line coach. Maybe he spends some more time with that position group than normal. I know as a head coach you can't be with all the position groups all at one time, but when the position group that you've been known to be an expert in have a ton of success is struggling, maybe that's when you either start being a little bit more hands-on with that position group or start evaluating that position group's coach. So, I mean,
I hate to say this, but maybe some of the players in there too. I mean, I don't want to rag on them too bad, but there was some definite issues from a penalty standpoint in this game. I think we had over 130 yards of penalties, and like 6 of those penalties came from one player on the offensive line. So that's kind of a rough look also. And if you can't figure some of those things out, I mean, yeah, he may be a little bit more talented than one of your guys on the bench, but if he's not more disciplined, then it's no good. You know what I mean? So got to figure those things out too.
Yeah, that's very true. So as we wrap up here, we'll cover some SEC Week 3 results as LSU had their first conference game of the season, beating Mississippi State 41-14. Missouri upsets Kansas State 30-27. And if you didn't get to see this game, this was awesome. An intense game where Missouri quite literally walks it off with a 61-yard field goal. Yes, I said 61. That is a school record for them. They walked it off. Maybe Missouri is not as bad as they have been in the past. They got a ranked win. We'll see what happens when we get to SEC play. Who knows? And then you have Georgia beating South Carolina 24-14. Closer game than you would think. Georgia isn't looking the best this season so far. I think a lot of that goes back to they're struggling with their quarterback play, which has been the story around the league. And that's why this next score, Alabama beats South Florida 17-3. Only 17-3. Coach Saban.
Serious quarterback issues. Yeah, serious 100%. Issues with quarterback.
You saw Jalen Milroe get benched. Tyler Buckner got the start in this one. Did not look great at all. You played Ty Simpson, another guy on their roster. He didn't look much better, or if any better. So, they were able to get the win here. But if they don't get something figured out, it's going to be a long season for Alabama, and especially this week where they're only favored by 7 against Ole Miss, who they have a quarterback. Jackson Dart has been probably one of the top quarterbacks in the SEC this season. So I know they've already named Milroe as the starter again for this team going into Saturday, so we'll have to see what happens there. And then Texas A&M beats UL Monroe 47-3. The big upset here, Florida beating Tennessee in the Swamp 29-16. Historically, this has been a game Florida has won, as Tennessee has not had much luck in the Swamp. So this is a game where maybe Florida is not as bad as everybody thinks they are, or did they just, historically they play good against Tennessee, and that's what happened here. I think it's a little too early to still be able to tell. Auburn beats Samford 45-13. UNLV, Coach Odom taking over UNLV, comes into the SEC and beats Vanderbilt 40-37. Ole Miss beats Georgia Tech 48-23. And Kentucky beats Akron 35-3. So some interesting scores around the league this week. As we're ramping up conference play this week, I think it's, like we mentioned before, I think the West and even the East is wide open this year. So this could be a crazy season for the SEC. And so we'll just have to see how it goes as we progress through the season. With that, we'll take a quick break, and we'll be back with some more news for Arkansas basketball, soccer, volleyball, softball, baseball, all of it. We'll be back with news on that here in just a bit.
You know what I like? I like to be comfortable. I also love representing my favorite sports teams. And in the Clutch, I am able to have the best of both worlds. In the Clutch Apparel is your one-stop shop for all things sports. They have officially licensed gear from all your favorite teams and players from the NHL, MLB, NFL, and more. They have sports classic tees from yesteryear and beyond. Check out their full website in the link down below. When you enter the promo code Variety Sports, you get 10% off everything site-wide. Feel comfortable with your sports apparel and go over to their website now at intheclutch.com. And don't forget to use our code Variety Sports to get 10% off.
All right, we are back here, and with basketball news, we got a plug here. So go check out Hoops Southbound, where they had me come on, this week to do an Arkansas basketball preview show where, there's a lot of expectations and a lot of great players to watch for this Arkansas basketball team. So go check out that preview show with myself, David, Maddie over there at Hoops Southbound team. And they put out a lot of great content, a lot of great conversation, really good talk about what we could see from Coach Musselman and the squad this year. A lot of things and high expectations for the Hoop Hogs this year. So we'll jump over to soccer where Seth will take us through this and we'll go from there.
Yeah, man. So Arkansas took on Tennessee on the 15th, and we're able to pull this match out 3-1. There's some pretty cool highlights from this match, so I'd definitely suggest you going on YouTube and watching a few of those. I think Razorback Instagram, the soccer page, posted some of them as well. So B. Franklin scored in the 12th minute, so got started fast again because it's kind of been the MO in the games that we've won. Off of a corner kick that was actually taken by Avery Wren. It was headed by Anna Potagil. The goalie for Tennessee batted it back out, and then Franklin was just kind of in the right place at the right time to just send that thing right back in there. It was a really, really cool play. Definitely recommend going and watching that one. Tennessee equalized the match in the 30th minute, and then Bay Franklin put Arkansas back in front a minute and a half later to put us at 2-1. And then Sophia Aragon scored Arkansas's final goal off an assist from Emily Hauser at the 72-minute mark to finish that one out 3-1. So great to get a win in conference play. Then Arkansas took on Grand Canyon on the 17th, 2 days later, where we won this match 3-2. Grand Canyon actually scored first in the 11th minute mark to take an early 1-0 lead. Then we tied up the match and then took the lead with 2 goals in the final 2 minutes of the first half there. Forward Anna Potagil netted the first goal off a free kick from Emily Hauser, and then Zoe Shepard scored the go-ahead goal with 15 seconds left on the clock from across from Potagil. GCU tied up the match with 53 seconds to play. Arkansas came back to retake the lead and the win 27 seconds later. So kind of a flurry of things going on in this match. Bella Field had the win goal assisted by B. Franklin and Kyla Delaney. And B. Franklin was voted to the College Soccer News of the Week team and the TDS team of the week. So getting some recognition for her stellar play in these 2 matches. Arkansas is going to take on number 7 Alabama at home on September 21st at 6:30. So got a big matchup, another SEC matchup against one of the top 10 teams in the country.
Yeah, this will be a big electric matchup. This is a top 25 matchup as Arkansas is ranked 11th. So just right outside that top 10. So, Alabama coming down, you get a win here. I think you might move back into that top 10 spot. So, some exciting things there. Good to see this team get back on track after a few losses there in non-conference play. You jump in, get a good win against TCU, get a good win against Grand Canyon. And then you take on a tough conference opponent coming to town. I think this is going to be an exciting electric game. And I believe if I saw correctly, this is going to be a whiteout game. So this will be exciting for, Kobe Hill and this Arkansas soccer team.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, exciting things. So we'll jump over to Arkansas Volleyball, where Arkansas Volleyball is rolling here as they reeled off 3 wins here as they beat Buffalo 3-0, St. John's 3-1, and then also they beat Bryant 3-0, and then they will take on South Carolina on September 22nd at 6 p.m. So, this team's rolling here, reeled off 3 good victories while they were in New York. I believe all these teams were in or around that New York area. They come back home, take on South Carolina. So this is, they're having some success there. And then I know it is the fall, but we got some Arkansas softball news as they've got their fall ball schedule, and they got kicked off here where they took on McLennan Community College on September 17th, where Arkansas won this game 7-1. Who else gets it started from a hot streak last year? Made the exciting announcement she was coming back and just continued where she left off. Rylan Hedgecock had a 3-run home run in this game. Transfer Bree Ellis, who, transferred from Auburn, known to have big hits, also added a home run. And Natalia Rijo also added a home run in this game as well. So Arkansas finished with 11 hits. Reagan Johnson had 3 of those 11. And we also pitched 6 pitchers on the day where, getting several arms in the circle there with Hannah Camden coming out starting this game with 2 innings. Transfer Reese Berlin, 2 innings. Callie Turner came in for 1 inning. Transfer Morgan Leinart, 2 innings. Robin Heron, 2 innings, and Nikki McGaffin, an inning. So, just seeing what we got, letting these girls get out there, stretch their arms out, kind of figuring out what we're going to do with all this talent in this lineup here. So it's very exciting times. They got a few more games throughout this fall schedule here, and we'll keep you updated on those as we have it. And then you jump over to the other diamond where Arkansas baseball had their fall classic on the September 15th, where the Gray beat the Cardinals 7-2. We'll go through some pitching stats here really quickly. For the Gray team, transfer from Texas Tech, Mason Molina got the start for the Gray team, pitched 1 inning, faced 3 batters, 3 strikeouts on 20 pitches. Very efficient there. If that's a sign of what's to come this season, I think we got a gem there from that transfer portal.
No doubt.
Gabe Geckel came in for 2 2/3 of an inning, 2 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks on 29 pitches. Parker Coyle came in for an inning, had 2 strikeouts on 9 pitches. Christian Fouch for an inning with 1 strikeout, 9 pitches. You have Gage Wood, 1 inning, 1 hit, 1 strikeout on 9 pitches. Colin Fisher, 1 inning, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts on 20 pitches. And Stone Hewlett, 1 inning pitched, 1 hit, 1 strikeout, and on 14 pitches. So not a bad outing for these pitchers on the Gray team. Really efficient pitching. A lot of striking out there. I think that's a good sign. As we lost some guys to the draft this year. What we got coming back, it'll be interesting to see how this pitching lineup shakes itself out once we get towards the start of the season here. And then you flip over to the Cardinal team. You have Brady Tigert getting the start in this one, where he went 1 inning, allowing 1 hit, 2 runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts on 24 pitches. Hunter Dietz, 1 inning pitched, 1 strikeout on 10 pitches. Ben Bybee, one inning pitched, 1 hit, 1 run, 1 strikeout on 13 pitches. Will McIntyre, 1 inning pitched, 1 hit, 1 strikeout on 19 pitches. You got Jack Smith for 2/3 of an inning, 1 hit, 2 runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts on 28 pitches. So a lot of stats in that 2/3 of an inning there. And you got Tate McGuire for 1 inning, 1 strikeout, 7 pitches. Jake Faraday, 1 inning for 3 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, 1 strikeout on 22 pitches. So I think you've got a lot of talent in this pitching room. It's like we said, it'll be interesting to see how the lineup shakes out, how the rotation shakes out. Some of these guys are freshmen, some of these guys are transfer guys, some of these are returners that we know what we're going to get out of them. So it'll be interesting to see what Dave does with this pitching lineup this season. Then you flip over to the offensive part. We'll highlight just a couple guys for each team here. On the Gray team, you had Jack Wagner go 2 for 3 and 1 run. Will Edmondson, 2 for 3, 1 run, and 2 RBIs. And then for the Cardinal squad, you had Parker Rowland go 1 for 3, 1 run, and 1 RBI. And Ryder Helfrich, 1 for 2 and 1 run. So, fall ball is getting here. Before you know it, January is going to be here. And, baseball is right around the corner from there. So, don't want to fly through football season or basketball season, but it's always a good time to get back in bomb and get to the diamond.
Yeah, I'm excited, dude. There's a ton of pitchers got a lot of work in this basically scrimmage game. So a lot of good things to see there. I thought Mason Molina really stood out, pitched well. I think everybody was kind of getting thrown in there just to get some reps, so can't take a whole lot out of it. I think a lot of these guys probably didn't even really get lathered up and get in their groove, so can't take too much out of any of these stats, honestly. But it's good to see this many names getting thrown in there. See what kind of talent level you got from top to bottom. Obviously, you got some guys that are going to be kind of your starters and your guys you lean on next year, between Brady Tigert, Will McIntyre, I'm sure Gage Wood to an extent. So some of those guys you kind of know where they're going to shake out to an extent, but the rest of these guys are the question marks. So it's good to see them getting some work and getting some evaluation in for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. And so then now we'll jump to our preview this week, where Arkansas is going down to Death Valley to play LSU, this Saturday at 6:30. So under the lights, primetime on ESPN. Unlike the past 3 games this season, Arkansas starts out not the favorite in this game, where LSU is actually favored by 17.5 with an over-under of 55.5. So Vegas or whoever is expecting a high-scoring game and for LSU to win by at least 2 touchdowns and a field goal. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully Pittman gets this team ready. They look at the film, they figure out hopefully something with that offensive line, and we can come in here and compete. It seems like it never fails. We always play a good game with LSU. Last year was a close game here in Fayetteville. 2 years ago, we went down and walked it off in overtime with a kick by Cam Little to win the game. So always a good series, always a good battle with LSU. And LSU comes in this game averaging 45.47 points per game. So they're putting up some points. It's one of those things they up until last week didn't play really any conference SEC opponents. They had a loss against Florida State. So you got to really take it for what it's worth there. And they're averaging 537 total yards per game, 344.3 passing, 192.7 rushing, and they're allowing 338.3 yards, 207.7 passing, 130.7 rushing. So that'll be interesting to see, what they can do against our defense, what we do against them. And so really when you start looking at them, you got to look at key players for LSU. I think the one guy you got to start talking about with is the quarterback for this team, Jaden Daniels, 6'4", 210. On the season, he's 70 for 95, resulting in a 73.7% completion rate for 976 yards, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, 35 carries for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns. So this is definitely a guy that he's got the legs and the mobility to move. He has thrown for nearly 1,000 yards so far and 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, but he's a guy that I think if you can get pressure on him, really step up the competition against him. To me, he hasn't been the most accurate passer. He has a 73.7% completion rate, whereas I think KJ's averaging about 68. So very similar realms there. And he's got some speed to go along with that. You see 157 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns. So coming in this game, I think a key focus point when you're game planning here is slowing this guy down. And whether that be getting pressure on the edge, sealing those gaps where he can't break the edge. That's where a lot of his yardage on the ground comes from. He gets outside, hits the edge, and then, picks up, 10, 12 yards for first down. So, when you're looking at this guy, what do you think Arkansas needs to do here to have success in this game?
Well, I think you got to get pressure on him, like you said, for sure. But you don't want to over pursue. So, you've seen it in years past where you blitz off the edge so hard at somebody, you end up running past them behind them, and then they're able to split through the gap that you just created and take off for 10, 15 yards. So you want to be able to pressure him, but you also don't want to lose him because he can get away from you in a hurry. He's kind of one of those guys. So that would be my main thing is be aggressive, but don't be overly aggressive from a defensive line and an edge rusher standpoint. Make sure you kind of keep him in front of you. And if you can make a sack play, great. But if not, if you can just keep him from extending a play and letting his receivers get open, force him to throw something just because the pocket's collapsing around him, don't miss that. That's going to be critical. I think if you start seeing guys kind of over pursue and whiff on a tackle or something like that in the backfield, and then he's got an open lane right or left, he's going to take advantage of that. So that's going to be the biggest thing to watch for. I think our coverage will be okay. I'm not going to say they're just going to be phenomenal or anything like that. LSU's got some decent players at the wide receiver position and tight end, but I think our coverage will be better than it was last year. I think we'll have a better opportunity to have some coverage sacks and things of that nature. So I really look to see how well we can bottle him up and not let him extend plays with his legs, whether it's for him running a play or just being able to get outside the pocket and then throw downfield after that. That's going to be one of the biggest things I think is critical for us.
Yeah, I agree. And then you jump over there, running back, you got Logan Diggs, 6'1", 215. He has 24 carries on the season for 156 yards and 1 touchdown. So, about an average, really what you're seeing across the league right now, nothing that blows you out of the water. A guy that, of course, we're going to have to stop him, but nothing that really jumps out, on the page from just a standpoint of extreme talent there. But then you flip over to their top receiver, Malik Neighbors, 6 foot, 200 pounds. He has 24 receptions on the season for 393 yards and 3 touchdowns. This is the guy that you're going to have to lock down. And clearly, Jaden Daniels' favorite target. I expect this to be, a game where you put somebody like Dwight McClellan on this guy, maybe Jaheim Singletary, somebody that can really lock him down and, make it difficult for him to get open and for Jaden Daniels to get him the ball.
Yeah, you got to hit him at the line. That's a lot of it where you're actually able to slow these guys down off their route. Can't miss on some of those like jam plays like that where you're trying to slow a guy down off the line. If you do play man coverage, if we're playing some zone packages and things of that nature, you just have to have that mindset that, hey, we've got to look his way maybe a little bit more than we normally would at other receivers. Maybe you shift a couple steps that direction. You don't want to cheat yourself on other plays, but you got to definitely circle him in the defensive scheming standpoint. So I'm curious to see how we approach covering him. I think he's the best receiver we've faced so far this year, just from a stat standpoint. And then the guy who's throwing him the ball is probably one of the better quarterbacks out there. So they've definitely got the potential to hit us for some big plays. So I'm curious to see how we address that, how we kind of tackle that task. It's going to be, I don't think it's going to be any one person that's just going to be able to lock him down. I think you're going to have to kind of have a team approach, shift some things around, maybe hide some coverages, try to trick Jaden a little bit, something like that. It's going to take a lot.
Yeah, that's for sure. And so, those are some guys we want to watch for LSU. This is going to be, like I said, it's always a good game between these two teams. It's something that you really never know how it's going to go, no matter, in a sense, you look a few years ago, how bad Arkansas was. They were always still in this game. There's something about this matchup, this rivalry game. To me, our true rivalry game of the year has been shifted to the beginning of the season. So I'll be interested to see if we can open up SEC play with a big win in Death Valley at night. Part of that is going to be, do we have this guy back, Rocket Sanders? He is questionable for this game. Pittman said right now it's too early to tell. So I feel like that's a semi-good sign that we're not just completely rolling him out right now. There's a clip out on Twitter X today where you saw him in practice doing some light work. He did have a compression sleeve on that left leg, the knee that he was dealing with that swelling on. So, it'll be interested to see how he progresses throughout the week. Is he ready to go, or is he still kind of nursing somewhat of an injury? Like I said last week, I believe I did, is I hope this doesn't turn into a Nick Smith situation where you're like, oh, okay, we just got to give him a few games to get back, and it's something more serious than we really thought it would be. So, I think there's a few things that Arkansas has to shore up to be able to have success in this game. I think that starts with what we mentioned at the beginning of the episode. We've got to shore up this offensive line. We've got to keep KJ upright and not running for his life, and some pressure off him where he can make those throws. Because we have the talent at wide receiver for him to be able, for us to have success. You've got Armstrong, you've got Haas, you've got Isaac Tesla. Maybe we throw Satania in there. He works in with them this week. I think you got to figure out something, and I think that starts with giving KJ time to throw and find his targets. And then on top of that, we've got to, whether it's Rocket or not, we've got to get the running game going, and not just one big play and then the rest of the game not great averages. We've got to get the push. We've got to hit our blocks. We've got to actually bully up the guys that are on the line there, on the defensive line. So, I think there is a lot of intrigue in this game, and for me, I want to see some corrections. Sam Pittman come out, address what we struggled with last week, and this could be one heck of a game.
Yeah, it really could be. I'll tell you what, it'll make that BYU loss not taste so bad if you can squeak out a win against LSU and pull off the upset there. They're a heavy favorite in this one just off of what they've done the last 2 weeks. I mean, they thrashed Mississippi State. Just frankly, that was a beat down of a game, and they looked great. Obviously, the Florida State game, they didn't look as well. Granted, that was first game of the year. Everybody's, fighting the jitters and kind of working those kinks out. So I think at this point in the season, you know where your issues are, and you try to scheme around your issues and towards your strengths. So we'll kind of see how both teams are able to achieve that. I think we've got a shot at this game. I think we've got a shot at winning just about any game on our schedule. But to your point, we've got to get better in some areas. Even if it's not on every play, if you can at least run block well on half the plays, you're going to have more success than we've been seeing in these last couple of games. I mean, I really only saw good run blocking on maybe a quarter of the plays at most in that BYU game. It just seemed like guys were getting hit in the backfield more often than not. We were making plays out of nothing where we could, but it was harder sledding than it should have been. So got to make some improvements there. However that needs to be done, whether it's you run less, you run the ball off a pass game kind of situation, like let your pass game open up first to try to get guys out of the box. I don't know. I just hope we can come out in this game and have some success early, try to make it a little bit easier and just help our defense not be so gassed late in the game, because that's going to be another critical factor is who has got the most depth when it comes to that fourth quarter, who's the freshest by then and all that kind of stuff. So we've got a shot this game. We really do. But it's going to take the ball going our way a few times, and it's going to take us improving in some areas for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And so with that wraps up our preview for this week's game versus LSU. Tune in 6:30, ESPN, primetime under the lights, Death Valley. Always a good game. Get ready for some hopefully exciting Arkansas ball where we can possibly go down there and still win, like Seth said. So this is going to be some exciting football. So get ready for it. And so as we getting ready to wrap up here, we got some upcoming events where Arkansas is taking on Tennessee, soccer match, that they're taking on Alabama this week on Thursday in a ranked top 25 matchup where you've got Alabama number 7, Arkansas at 11. This is going to be a big, exciting game. So if you can get out there and get there, be there, and you'll be in for some exciting things. You got football coming up. You've got volleyball coming up versus South Carolina. A lot of good things happening for this, Arkansas sports program. You've got men's and women's tennis in the PTT 25K Fayetteville matches. You got Kentucky coming up in swimming and diving on the 22nd at noon. As you mentioned, South Carolina volleyball at 6 p.m. on Friday the 22nd as well. And then we mentioned Saturday, LSU in Death Valley. Arkansas football is taking on the LSU Tigers. On Sunday, the 24th, volleyball will be taking on the Texas A&M Aggies at 3 p.m. And then on that Sunday, women's soccer is right back out on the pitch with a matchup against the Texas A&M Aggies. Again, two Texas A&M schools or teams, two different sports, but we got them here, so that'll be exciting to see. That's on the road, so they're coming here, we're going there, so a lot of good things. And so we'll be right back here next week. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you find your podcast and videos at. So thank you for listening to today's episode of Woo Big Weekly, and we'll be right here back next week.